We have some exciting news on a Lonzo Ball injury update, even though we thought that it might be worse than it seems to be right now. We're also going to talk about how Billy Donovan is in hot water with the media and some Bulls fans after this season and the previous one since he's been there. This is our new co host, Rico Greenhowe. Rico, you just want to give a quick introduction there?
Yeah, man, thanks a lot. It's always great to be on here with the great point guard here, Joey Mercer, man. So it's always a pleasure to be here and excited to talk about the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we got some great topics to talk about today, and let's start out with that first one there, being Lonzo closer to return. So as we talked about towards the end of last week, of course, we thought that Lonzo might even miss all of next season because they said that he hasn't even started sprinting yet. But now, from what we're hearing, even though Billy Donovan come out and said that, there's some videos showing him dunking, showing him running around, shooting threes, a whole bunch of different things there. What's your thoughts on that, Rico?
Well, I mean, thus far, a lot of us here, like our Chicago fans, are really on the up and up here. Seeing him being able to reverse pivot, he's starting to do a lot of stutter steps with his dribbles, seeing him actually dunk the basketball and shoot the ball, and it looks pretty good and pretty pure right now. So obviously there's a lot of optimism here. Initially, I'm hoping this isn't a situation like Derrick Rose back in the day where we saw all those videos of him. He came out, he started the season, and then he retore up the knee. So, it's really an optimism that is controlled at this point, but so far, so good.
Yeah, for sure. And to start that article, actually, we could see it says Bulls Lonzo Ball takes another step toward NBA return by Adam Taylor. This was actually on yardbarker.com. Starts out by saying Lonzo Ball missed the entirety of last season due to a knee injury. He has also been ruled out for the rest of this season. His absence has coincided with a slide in production from the Chicago Bulls. Ball has a player option on his contract for next season that he's almost certain to pick up. However, he has now given Bulls fans a reason to be excited. In a new video recently posted on social media, the playmaking guard can be seen working out on the court. His movement looks smooth and he appears to be moving freely. So that's some pretty good news for Bulls fans and even Bulls management to hear and see that video coming out. What's your thoughts on it there, Rico?
Well, I mean, it's really great because, like I said, now that he's actually running. There was that video out there of could he get out of a chair? Obviously, he can get out of a chair. And at this point in time, to me, I think that he's either going to be one of two players coming back here, and two players that come to mind that actually played in the NBA. One being Sean Livingston, who was a talented point guard, much like Lonzo Ball was coming out of high school, had the horrific knee injury with the Clippers, eventually revamped his career with the Golden State Warriors, won championship rings. He was able to refine his jump shot, be pretty much automatic from the mid range, still distribute the ball at a high level, and knock down timely threes. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where he could maybe end up like a guy like Brandon Roy. Brandon Roy, if you're not familiar with him, played for the Portland Trailblazers. I believe he was Rookie of the Year at the time. He actually was Dame Lillard before there was a Dame Lillard, a guy who could knock down jump shots. He could assist the ball at a high clip, and he could get to the mid range. Once he had those knee injuries, he was never the same again. So I believe that we're looking at one of two players when he comes back. Both are equal to his height of the 6'7", 6'6". And really, the conditioning, I think, is one thing that we really, really have to think about here. But thus far, so good seeing him be able to run, jump, reverse cut, dunk, jump shots, things like that. It looks good now, but I'm waiting to see what happens when he gets against a live defense.
Yeah, for sure. And a very good comparison there in both of those players. And Sean Livingston with a 3-point shot, if that were to be capable, even in the latter part of his career, is definitely a great player to have on any team if you're looking to win. So that would be definitely something exciting to look forward to. Which leads us into this next part of the article, which is Ball last played on January 14th, 2022, where he faced the Golden State Warriors. He was 24 when his injury struck. Missing 2 years of basketball will undoubtedly have lowered his ceiling as a potential star. Nevertheless, the Bulls had constructed their roster around Ball's passing and defense. He was supposed to be the metronome that led them toward a championship. Those skills aren't something you lose. He could still be the player Chicago envisioned him becoming. it's going to take some time before Ball is back at his best. He will need to work through the on-court conditioning issues that come with such a lengthy layoff. It will take time for him to develop a rhythm with his shot, and the Bulls will need to be patient with his ability to defend at an elite level on the perimeter. And that's true. I mean, he was one of the best big switches I've seen when it comes to not actually a big switching onto guards, but a guard switching onto bigs. That's going to be really difficult for him with the surgeries on that knee and having to put some pressure if bigger players are trying to put their weight on him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think also to the Eastern Conference, and not just the Eastern Conference, but the Western Conference guards have gotten a lot better. Think about this. In the Eastern Conference alone, he's going to have to guard guys like Tyrese Maxey. He's going to have to be able to guard a guy like Dame Lillard. He's going to have to be able to switch out on combo guards like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who have certainly got better. And then that's not even just to account for the Western Conference. When you look at guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, can you see Lonzo having to pick up a guy like Anthony Edwards, who might be the MVP this year, or a guy like Kawhi Leonard, Paul George? So certainly that conditioning and being able to go ahead and switch on bigs, he's going to have some strength in the legs to be able to do these things. And this is where it is the optimism that we really have to kind of make sure that we level this optimism, because it's just not a real certainty of what type of player we're going to get back. You also mentioned about how the Bulls had actually built the roster around him, which is absolutely true. I believe they were 46-36 in that season before he went down. And now you have the ascension of Kobe White, and who I think is probably the most improved player in the NBA at this point in time. So there could be some rotational issues at this point. So giving him the keys to the car again, I don't know if Coach Billy Donovan or whoever is going to be there is going to be reluctant to do so.
Yeah, and I mean, Kobe White for sure, I have to agree with that, being the most improved player. Almost 10 points per game of a difference between last year. I mean, we didn't even know how long he was going to be around with how he was playing when Lonzo was out there. Where would his minutes come? He looked like a sixth man at best, but now he's shown that he's definitely worthy of some playing time in this team. Giving the keys to him is a smart decision, even though he's been on a slump as of late. But Dosunmu could definitely be a guy, I think, to help Lonzo as he comes back on the defensive end, just until he gets comfortable with that level of play again. I mean, the difference between in an open gym and the NBA, as you mentioned, is crazy different. Which leads us into the next part of this article, which is, nevertheless, when Ball does return to the rotation, it will be a significant upgrade for the Bulls. However, seeing how his return affects Kobe White, who has been enjoying a breakout season, will be interesting. Fortunately for White, we're unlikely to see Ball this season. Still, multiple question marks will be hanging over Billy Donovan's guard rotation to begin next season. And, I mean, that's absolutely accurate. I mean, lots of guards on this team, and it's not going to be easy even if Lonzo comes back just to make it in that rotation with what they've built. What do you think about that with the point guards we have on this team right now, Rico?
Well, first and foremost, we've got to give Kobe White his flowers. I think that Kobe White has done an incredible job of going out there, getting serious in the gym. You can tell that his handle has gotten a lot better. And though he is in a little bit of a slump, I believe he was 4 of 27 the last three games as far as shooting the basketball. He has relatively shot the basketball very well and has stretched the defense. And just speaking of the Cavaliers and that double overtime game, I think Donovan Mitchell had mentioned that Kobe White certainly belongs in this league. And I think it's been incredible with what he's done. So, and in my opinion, he's definitely the starting point guard. As far as Dosunmu and how he's done, I love him. He's a hometown kid. I love how defensively he is able to play the passing lanes. And I think his jump shot has gotten a lot better since his rookie season. And he's been well deserving to play as well. And you talk about that being able to help Lonzo certainly assimilate on the defensive end. I think, yes, he is going to have to rely on these two. Will Lonzo Ball be able to get back to a 13 points per game, 5.4 assists a game, and 5 rebounds a game, possibly a triple double? That is probably yet to be seen. It's a huge question mark there. And like rotationally right now, like I said, if he turns out to be a Sean Livingston, that's terrific, because Sean Livingston came off the bench in his career and they won championships. Is Lonzo Ball going to be willing to do that? Is his athleticism going to allow him to do that? And so that's the real question here. But I believe that Kobe White has to be the lead guard, and then it has to defer to Dosunmu, who I think that has to happen, especially if Lavine or DeRozan move on.
For sure, I got to agree with that. And that leads us into the second topic there today, being Billy Donovan in hot water. So we just briefly talked about how, he's had to make a lot of tough decisions. The front office hasn't exactly put the best team around him. I mean, it's been very challenging for him to make something out of nothing. And then you have this season with all the injuries as well. What can he really do? It's been very, very difficult for Billy Donovan. How do you think he's handled this so far?
I think he's handled it in stride. And the one thing that I love about Coach Billy Donovan is he seems to be upbeat. I've never heard any kind of player interviews that have really shunned his coaching style. I think he's done a great job as far as mixing with the vets and the younger players. If you look at his OKC days, he worked with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook at the peaks of their career there. I believe that is when Golden State came back from the 3-1 deficit. He was actually the coach of that team. And he also was around with OKC when they went to a slight rebuild where it was Shea Gillis, you had Lou Dort, and then you had Chris Paul. And they were actually able to make the playoffs that year. And I believe that was going to be the bubble year as well. So Billy Donovan, to me, has shown that he can work with a range of players here. The real issue is not the fact of what he's coaching up on the court, it's what he has to coach with. And I think that that's the real issue here. The Chicago Bulls front office continue to make moves that never move the franchise forward. At some point, you've got to gut this thing and you've got to start over and get an identity. And that's the huge issue with the Chicago Bulls. They have zero identity.
Yeah, and that's absolutely accurate. I mean, it's not even the moves, it's the lack of moves. I mean, no acquisitions hardly at all, besides we're talking about a couple free agent signings this offseason. They got Javon Carter, they got Torrey Craig. Those are guys that you get when you need that extra piece off the bench. Those are not guys that you go and pick up when you're in the situation the Chicago Bulls are in. You're basically adding something very small to nothing at all. I mean, they really need to make some major adjustments, decide which direction they want to go in, and that can really ultimately define their future, what they do this offseason. And that leads us into this next article saying, is Billy Donovan the right head coach to develop the Chicago Bulls' young players? This was by Mark Lawrence and from Yahoo Sports on Bulls Wire. It starts out by saying the Chicago Bulls had a bad loss to the Milwaukee Bucks at the United Center, and fans of the team were left with more questions than answers after the defeat. Is the youth movement on the team back on track? Should we be more worried about the team's elder statesmen as far as leadership goes? And is Billy Donovan the right head coach to develop the team's young players? At times, there seems to be a reluctance to play the ball club's younger players in key junctures, even after what we have seen from this team's younger players of late. Could a coaching change end up coming in the 2024 NBA off season? 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that Billy Donovan is a terrific coach for the youth. I talked about what he was able to do with OKC. And let's not make any mistake about it. Look, the Bulls have trusted this guy with an extension that they gave him prior to the 22-23 season. He did lead the club to a 46 and I think 36 record, which was actually its first playoff appearance since 2017. Now, they got outed by the Milwaukee Bucks, but look, Billy Donovan can coach. Okay, that's just the bottom line here. Now, the issue is just the pieces that the Chicago Bulls have. And I just think that you mentioned in this article too about the youth movement. I think that we have to evaluate the youth movement, and it really starts with a guy like Patrick Williams. Okay, here's a guy that we got who was fourth, overall in that draft class. And I think we were expecting something like a Scotty Barnes type of player at this point, a point forward slash a little bit of a Kawhi Leonard feel on the defensive end. And we've seen flashes, but we have not gotten that all the way. He's been a bit injury prone. This is, I believe, his second season where we have had to shut him down. So I think at this point in time, the youth that we have with Kobe White at the guard situation is fine, but we've got to address the elephant in the room here. And do we move on from Patrick Williams and restart that over again? Dalen Terry, I think, is a guy that should be getting playing time along with Julian Phillips. I think that he definitely has rightfully earned some playing time. And then we're not even talking about Batum. Batum might be one of the best shooters that we've had since we actually drafted a prospect in Laurel Marketing. So it is time to start to play those guys. I get where Coach Donovan's at when we're in the playoff hunt. And it may shake up the veterans a little bit if we start to play these guys, but at the end of the day, we don't have anything left.
Yeah, and I mean, the team's shooting stroke is obviously very pure, even at the NBA level. And on top of that, too, like you said about Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips, they definitely deserve some time on this team. Phillips has made some mistakes, but I think the only knock I can think of on Billy Donovan is if they make mistakes, they're going to learn from them, but they've been taken out very early. We need to see some more time from them. We've seen some more time from Terry as of late, but to take
Mhm.
some minutes off of DeMar, who's been playing like 40 plus minutes on many nights, it'd be great to see if Julian Phillips could take some of those minutes away, integrate some of the young guys, and get them some experience right away. It's not like we're going to make a deep playoff push, but even if we get past that play in, these guys are still very valuable and obviously able to play certain aspects of the game right away.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with you there. And I just, like you said before, I mean, at some point, it's just that Coach Billy Donovan has to trust that you're going to make mistakes. And I think I'd heard something before, is a famous quote, that you're going to fail your way to success. And that's the same thing in basketball as well. As painful as it is, and as important as this game is, the bottom line is you've got to go out there and learn how to lose before you become a winner. And that's what I think we have to look at with our youth movement. You've got to allow these guys to lose at some things before they ultimately win.
Absolutely. That's a very good point there, Rico. Just before we end it there on this episode, we just want to look at the record that Billy Donovan has with the Bulls. Not really all his fault for sure. I mean, as you mentioned, that 46 and 36 record with Lonzo Ball. And then you look at the rest of the team before him, and you look at since then. It hasn't been a whole lot for Billy Donovan. He can only do so much. I think he's doing the best job that he can, and I think more of this needs to fall on AK and Mark Eversley ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is right there. You just pointed out the fact that it comes down to the front office. I mean, at what point are we going to hold the front office, right, accountable? When are we going to start to see those articles there? When are we going to start to see those failed draft picks? How many times do we have to continue to throw, players and coaches out there before the top has to take some responsibility here for these draft picks and for these signings here? Because some of these guys, why is it that we get a guy like Batum and we get him undrafted and he's been more successful than some of our draft picks? There has to be something drastically wrong here. What are we evaluating in the draft to even get here? We shouldn't be in situations where we're questioning our youth, and we shouldn't be in situations here like you talked about with what we got on the bench with Carter, and guys like that we brought over. They should be complementing a championship team, not coming in to help kind of bridge the gap, rebuild, whatever we are. We're like in a weird leap right now as a team. So we shouldn't be in this situation. And I think that comes down to the front office and not Billy Donovan.
Absolutely, I have to agree with you there. And that leaves us a lot to think about after this episode of Bulls Digest. And let us know what you thought about everything that we had to say there today down below in the comment section. Make sure to like the video if you made it to the end, and subscribe to the channel. Lots more to come from me and Rico. And it's both of us here now signing off. We'll see you both in the next time.